Hi everyone, this is CJ with Cycletron. Well, today I'm going to do my long overdue video of our 2024 katanas, my two youngest sons' katanas, and I'm going to compare it with my 2020 katana that I've had since the summer of 2021, so a little over 2 years. If you've heard me say a million times, I absolutely love my katana. It's my favorite bike of all time. I've got some special goodies that I've upgraded my bike with, but I want to compare the features of the new models to the previous models and talk about things that I like maybe more with one bike versus another. It seems that the katanas have really gained in popularity, at least in Europe, given the number of YouTube videos I've seen lately on the subject of these bikes. These 2024s in the United States were released as a special edition or limited release. Suzuki announced it in September 2023. We got our order in right away, and they delivered them not quite a month later in October of 2024. So again, I'm going to go over the features of these bikes. Let me know if you have any questions about any of these by leaving a comment down below. Now let's just start by getting a look at these things. Styling wise, there's no difference between the 2020 and the 2024. And when I say 2024, these are really 2023 models that were sold in Europe and Canada and other places. They just weren't sold in the United States. I don't see any difference in features between the 2023 model and these limited production 2024s. And I think the United States is the only one where they've called these 2024s. So I imagine the bike's going to remain unchanged for Canada and Europe relative to this current model. But there's some different features on these bikes. The 2024 model has a quick shifter, which I've experienced on my Gen 3 Hayabusa, and I absolutely love it. My boys say it's a very smooth bidirectional quick shifter. Now, I'll fire these bikes up in a minute. On my bike, I've done a front and rear sprocket change, and I've got a Sprint air filter, a Brox full exhaust, and a more Mafia tune. So on my bike, I swapped out the Dunlop Sport Max that comes stock on the bike with these Diablo Rosso 4s, and these are way stickier tires. I really like them. So it allows for a little bit more sportier riding, although the stock tires aren't too bad. Now on the 2024 models, they've changed the color of the TFT display to be more of an orange, which quite frankly I like better than the more lime green color that's on the 2020. But either way, they're great. I love the retro look of these dashes, and of course the square 80s style headlight. To me, those look fantastic. Now on the newer bikes, the 2024s here, you've got multiple riding modes. You don't have riding modes on the 2020. I don't know that it's necessary. It's just nice features to have. Let's hear what this 2024 sounds like. Again, stock exhaust. Let's compare it to mine with the Brox exhaust. So what I really love about my bike is the type of riding that I do for the most part is in-town riding and near-town riding. This bike performs excellently. I mean, it's, obviously you've got liter power. The more Mafia tune on this upped it to about 154 versus the 133 on the dyno stock. About 83 foot-pounds of torque. And I mean, it's just a complete blast. Now, you've heard people say they don't like the looks. This bike is a contrarian bike. It's not for everybody. If you want a more traditional retro style bike, I'd say get the Kawasaki Z900 RS. That's a fantastic bike, but it's not as radical looking as this one, if you want to call it radical. And you know, some of my formative years were in the 80s, so I can really relate to this kind of styling with the square headlight and the styling cues reminiscent of the original Suzuki Katana back in the 80s. But one of the other knocks on this bike is that it's only got a 3-gallon tank, so it produces a limited range. Stock, dead empty tank fuel range is about 138 miles. Now, to just give you an idea what the tuning can do on a bike, my son and I, one of my boys, each rode our Katanas, me on the 2020 and him on the 2024, and we did about a 77-mile ride after our gas stop where we filled up both tanks. And when I got back, I only had a 5-mile range left. My son still had 50-mile range left. Now, I admit, I don't think I ever got out of 4th gear, and we had several passes on this 2-lane road. It probably passed 5 or 6 vehicles at different times, so I was revving it up pretty good. So basically, you can imagine if I'm going through that much more gas, I was just having a blast on the bike. So again, this isn't set up for touring. If you want to tour on it, get something with a 200-mile range with luggage capacity, saddlebags, that sort of thing. This is a refined experience as it was. This is really a refined ride for blasting around town. You know, the other so-called knock is that it's got the K5 derived engine from back around 2005, but I think you file that under if it's not broke, don't fix it. These engines are absolutely bulletproof, and they've got tremendous reliability, and it allows people to tune them and do other things to increase power without decreasing the reliability of the bike. Now, on the 2024s, they came with 2 years of free maintenance, or the first 3 services, as it were, and a 2-year warranty, which is nice. My bike, when I got it, came with a 1-year warranty. These bikes used aren't much cheaper than when they sold new for MSRP of around $13,000. Now in 2021, in July, when I bought mine of that year, Suzuki had a $2,000 rebate on these Katanas, so I snapped it up. Out the door with setup fees and the other dealer charges, I was out the door for a flat $12,000. A lot of these used Katanas from 2020 are selling for more than $12,000. So I wouldn't say it's because they become collector bikes, but I think more people have discovered how fun and unique these bikes really are. So right now there's a lot of salt in the road in Minnesota. I don't know that I'm going to get the bikes out right now. We'll save the ride review for an update video. For now, I'll show you some video footage here of my Katana. One segment is when it was stock, and the other segment was after the more Mafia treatment. So you can kind of get a feel for the difference in character that putting on a full exhaust with a tune can do for this bike. So just as with the 2020, the 2024s have Brimbos up front and Nissan calipers in the back. There's plenty of stopping power. I've heard people say, well, it'd be nice to have Brimbos all the way around. Why? You know, Suzuki builds bikes with great performance and not going to really break the bank compared to other manufacturers that are trying to jam the latest and greatest technology in every single bike that they make. Think of Ducati in that regard. I mean, Ducatis are great. I've owned a couple myself, but you pay for it in terms of reliability and other things. You know, I've had a couple of Ducatis. I've had a 2016 X Diavolo S, and then I had a Multistrada, 2016 Multistrada. And every time I took those bikes in for service, I really never had any problems with it, but they'd always do 2 or 3 recall fixes on the bikes that I didn't even know about. I don't think I've heard of Suzuki doing a recall on any of these bikes in ever. So again, they're dialed in. That's what you get for having such an established engine and related components. And I just really love the looks of these bikes. Now the difference between the 2024s and the 2020s, you've got more of a gloss paint on the 2024s. My son put T-Rex frame sliders on his. My other son hasn't put any frame sliders on his yet. I got the Suzuki frame sliders on my 2020. Functionally, the difference between these two models is that the newer bikes are totally ride-by-wire, which you'd expect to be able to have a bi-directional quick shifter. My 2020 here has a cabled throttle, which is very responsive, and I actually really like it, although I don't know, you typically aren't going to see that much difference with the ride-by-wire. If you do, it may be a trade-off in order to get the bi-directional shifter. Now you can retrofit an up, so it'd be up to you whether you want the, I think, more responsive throttle, or you're okay with ride-by-wire in order to get the bi-directional quick shifter. You can get a quick shifter for this bike, but it's going to only be in the up direction. So it'll remain to be seen if Suzuki continues to offer the Katana in the United States for sale. It may be just a one and done thing where perhaps they had some extra 2023s and they thought, hey, maybe we'll see if anybody wants to buy them, but you got to order them, and we're only going to ship a number of bikes that were actually ordered. And I think a couple of dealers might have put in fictitious names for customers, because I see some unsold ones out there, but they may not last much longer, and I certainly wouldn't look for any deals right now. Even though winter's typically a good time to buy a motorcycle, it just still seems that there's not many deals to be had, no matter what kind of motorcycle you're trying to buy these days. That could change here in the next few months. So thanks for watching, and please stay tuned for my future ride review. I'll have my GoPro out and my Insta360, and you can just see directly the difference in what it's like to ride this bike versus this bike.